Hello, everyone. Welcome to session E5, EBSCONET and ALMA, Renewal Integration API, EDI, and more time-saving efficiencies. My name is Claire Ehrlich. I'm the moderator for this session. The session is being recorded. We ask that you remain muted unless the presenters invite you to unmute yourselves. If you have any questions, put them in the chat. I will keep an eye on that for the presenters. Our presenters this afternoon are Frank Durkin and Ann Campbell. Frank is a regional sales manager with EBSCO. He's been with EBSCO since 2006, working in both operations and sales roles. Frank earned his MLIS from Drexel while at EBSCO. Ann Campbell is a library automation manager at EBSCO and joined EBSCO in 2014, having served in a library technical services role since 1994, first with Blackwell North America, Blackwell Information Services, Readmore, and Sweats before joining EBSCO and Gobi. Ann has participated in editor standard working groups and is a member and past co-chair of the NISO Information Policy and Analysis Topic Committee. Take it away.
Thank you. That's not fitting properly, Ann, so while you do that, I'll do a quick introduction. I wanted to thank SUNYLA for allowing EBSCO to participate in the conference. It's something that we really appreciate every year. We like all of the sessions, not just the ones that we present at. So it's a great part of our year. And also to the conference organizers, this is not an easy thing to do, to organize a conference remote. It's a great conference in person, and it's also a great conference remote. We look forward to getting back in person. And we also want to thank the SUNY campuses and the SUNY system for partnering with us as we develop all of these tools and services for our library partners. It's important for us to not just create a square peg and try and sell it to someone in need of a round hole filler. So we do that by partnering with you with these services, whether it's via beta test or just asking you what's going on. So this is a service that we want to chat with you today about. Regarding renewal integration. And then if we have time, we'll talk about a few other efficiencies that we've developed in EBSCONET. So I'll turn it over to my partner, Ann.
Thanks, Frank. Can you see my screen okay now? Is it fitting properly?
Perfect.
And you don't see the Zoom bar or anything like that?
No, you're good.
Perfect. Thank you. So today, as Frank mentioned, we wanted to introduce the new EBSCONET Renewal Integration Service with ALMA. As many of you may already know, if you use EBSCONET Renewal Cart, it is a dynamic web-based user interface, and the new integration service will now provide the best of both worlds. It will allow our customers to use EBSCONET to manage your tasks that are centered around your journal renewal process. In addition to that, the updates will be pushed from EBSCONET order records to the matching purchase order lines in ALMA. Using the new fully functional, fully customizable EBSCONET integration profile, which I'll show you in a little bit, customers can now pick and choose what updates are delivered to ALMA on a field-by-field basis. So listed here are some of the benefits offered for this new integration service. As I mentioned, it does allow you to manage your EBSCO renewals in one place and save time, avoiding the need to do duplicate manual entry to reflect the changes you've made in EBSCONET in your ALMA purchase order line. The integration profile, not only is it customizable, but it can also be edited and saved and applied to different subsets of orders in your renewal cart before submitting them to EBSCO. And you'll see that later in this presentation as well. You can automatically validate the ALMA API connection when you're setting up your profile in EBSCONET. And this allows customers to not have to share your API key via email, which is not the most secure method of having someone enter that API key in for you. From security perspective, it is much safer to be able to configure a profile and add your API key and check access to your API connection on your own. Of course, we're available to support you, but it's nice to know that you're not sending your API key throughout the ether world in an email, an encrypted email message possibly. You can view and share your EBSCONET renewal notes now in your ALMA order line. What that means is in the EBSCONET renewal cart, there is a free text renewal notes field available for every order that's in the cart. And if you have patrons, or I'm sorry, if you have colleagues within your organization that don't have access to EBSCONET, perhaps there's something that you want to notate as you're working through your renewal list. And that notated free text can be delivered to the renewal note field in the ALMA PO line. You can update the list price if you'd like. You can push publisher cancellation policies from the EBSCONET order record to the ALMA order record. You can synchronize your renewal dates to match the renewal dates in EBSCONET. If the EBSCO order number is not already present in the vendor reference number field, we can send that order number as well. We can send the subscription to date to your ALMA order lines for anything that's not renewed with EBSCO. The nice thing about ALMA is any changes that are made to fields within a purchase order line, they're also stored in the history log tab, and I'll show you that later in the slides. And within EBSCONET, you can view the delivery status for each order record. So at the time that you check out your cart and deliver the updates to the ALMA purchase order lines, in EBSCONET for every order record, you can actually see, was it successfully delivered or not? Some details to review about this integration service. It is necessary for you, obviously, to be using EBSCONET to process your renewals with EBSCO. It will require you to set up the ALMA API with read-write access. The ALMA purchase order lines have to be present in the ILS number field for every EBSCONET order, because that is the match point that is required to call the API. EDI invoicing is not required to use the Renewal Integration Service, but it's nice if you are using EDI invoicing already, because if you are, we've already taken the time to gather the ALMA PO line number and store it in the ILS number field, because it's also the match point to load invoice details to the matching order record in ALMA. This integration service is not yet applicable for e-package renewals in EBSCONET. And the service does not replace EDI invoicing. So if you use the integration service for renewals, you would, if you're already loading EDI invoices, you would still have to do the EDI invoice load steps as well. So I'm just going to go through parts of the integration profile and explain them in some further detail to get a better understanding of how the service works. So the first thing we need to do if you want to use the service is to actually add the integration service to the user account in EBSCONET. And there's two levels of authorization. You can either just be a view-only user to see what is configured to be delivered to ALMA in the renewal cart, or you can have full access to the integration profile and actually have the ability to edit the profile, as well as turn the service on and off as you work through your renewals in the EBSCONET cart. And you'll see the option in the top right corner when you click on your user account. There's a new option now called ILS integration. And if you select that, it will bring you to this is like a snip of what the screen looks like. And the first thing you will need to do is select the 5-digit account that you're going to apply your profile configuration to. And then you can enter your API URL as well as your API key and immediately save that setting. And upon save, we will try to access the API using the API key configured in the profile. And if, for any reason, there is a failure, you will immediately see on the screen either a green success box or a red failure box. And you have the ability to click and view the error details. And what we do then is we actually regurgitate the exact error message that's received from the ALMA API onto the EBSCONET screen. So you have the ability to copy and paste that and open a ticket with Ex Libris, or at least review the exact error message to get an understanding of what needs to be done to correct your errors and try again. So this next slide is just a brief overview of what the new configuration and fields to send options are. So the top half of the integration profile, there's actually fields that you can not only choose to deliver to your ALMA PO line, but you can also configure what specifically is delivered for those specific fields, or you can simply just turn it off because you don't want to deliver that specific field of data to the corresponding field in the ALMA PO line. And we've provided these types of customizations because in the testing and interviews and work that we've done with lots of ALMA customers, we have learned that there are so many different workflows for renewals that customers do, and so many different requirements and things people need, that we wanted to do our best to make this as customizable as possible so that it could be, to just get a broader use base for customers to have the ability to use the service to meet whatever needs that they have. The other options in the fields to send area is not something that can be, you can't configure what's delivered to that field, but you can turn the delivery of that specific field on or off. So the list price option, so this is one of the fields that can be configured. So you can either not send it, so just select do not send, or you can choose to send just the unit price, or you can send the unit extended price, which is the list price plus a service charge if it's applicable. And tax is not applied to the price that would be delivered at that time, because taxes are not configured or applied until we actually run the invoice. Something to note that if the price in the renewal cart is 0, then we are not going to deliver a 0 price to your purchase order line in ALMA. The currency we send is always whatever you're billed in. And just to note that this is the price that we have at the time that you submit your cart from EBSCONET. So it's not going to be the price that exact price that you'll be invoiced, but it is the price that we have at the time you submit your cart. And you do have the ability in the cart to note if this is a updated price for the subscription term that we've received from the publisher, or are we using last year's price? And on this screen, the top half is what it looks like in EBSCONET, and the bottom half is actually, there's an arrow pointing to the exact field that would be updated. So it's basically the map that we're using. So we've mapped the price from EBSCONET to the list price field in the ALMA purchase order line. And what we've learned from customers is the value of adding the list price or updating the list price in your purchase order line is some customers perform year-end rollover and they use the list price plus an inflation percentage instead of your expenditures to encumber funds for the next fiscal year. So again, fully customizable, something you can choose to send or not send, and you can choose to send the unit price or unit price plus extended price or extended service charge. The next option that you can choose to send or not send is the renewal date. And updating the renewal date in ALMA indicates that the purchase order line has been renewed with EBSCO. And your options to send the renewal date are either the subscription start date plus a year. So that just pushes the renewal date out a year, indicating that it's been renewed. Some of our customers have indicated that they would prefer to send a customized renewal date. So they want to just physically manually type that date in that they want to be reflected in the purchase order line, which is fine. They have the ability to do that. And one of the benefits about using this update option is that your renewal dates would be aligned with the renewal date corresponding in the EBSCO order record. You also have the ability to send what's called the subscription to date for any items that are not renewed within the EBSCONET cart. When I was reading the developer notes about the API that we're using in ALMA, I first thought the subscription to date was the end date of the current subscription term, but that is not the case. The subscription to date would only be entered if you're no longer ordering that item with EBSCO. So any title that is ceased must order direct, or that you're actually canceling because you no longer want to order that through EBSCO, you have the option to deliver the subscription to date to that order record. And there's a job that runs in ALMA. And once the subscription to date is in the past, then the purchase order line will end up in a task list so that you can determine what to do next. But it's just an easy way to indicate that I've canceled this subscription or I'm no longer getting the subscription through EBSCO. And it's an easy way to receive an alert in your task list when that date is in the past. And the date we deliver is the last day of the current subscription term. So for example, if you would submit your renewals in September, but the end of the subscription term is December 31st, then that's the date that would be reflected in the subscription to date field in the ALMA purchase order line. Now we're moving into the section where this is the fields that you can just select to be delivered or not delivered. They cannot be configured with different values. So here's an example of the renewal notes that I spoke about earlier. So there is a free text renewal note field over here on the right side. So for every order record in the EBSCONET cart, there is a free text field called renewal notes. If you choose to deliver this field to ALMA at the time you submit your cart to be processed for your renewals, this renewal note field will be delivered to the renewal note field, which is actually the summary tab of the ALMA PO line, and it's down towards the bottom of the screen, down toward the bottom of the PO line in ALMA. Here's the cancellation restrictions. So if we are storing a cancellation policy in EBSCONET, so over here on the right side, you'll notice we don't have a cancellation policy because the publisher hasn't supplied it or provided it to us. So there are times where that could be, there could be no value there. But if there is a value in the cancellation policy, then we would, if it's checked to be delivered, then we would send two values actually. If there's a value, we would send a true statement, and there would be a yes in the cancellation restriction yes, no field in the ALMA purchase order line. And then the free text that you see in EBSCONET would be delivered to the cancellation restriction note field in the ALMA PO line. You can also turn on the option to deliver the EBSCO order number to the vendor reference number field in ALMA. And you can also choose to deliver your fund code from EBSCONET to your ALMA PO line. We do have an all caps limitation, so anything that we would deliver would be in all capital letters. So if you have if you have fund codes with lowercase letters, you would not want to turn you wouldn't want to check this box. But it's nice to share that we did some testing with SUNY Buffalo last week, I believe. And we were able to successfully test this because their fund codes were in all capital letters. And we selected this box, saved the profile, submitted the cart, and we were able to successfully see that the fund code update was sent to the PO line. And it was in all caps, which was fine because it's already in all caps in ALMA. There will be an error message. So if we try to deliver a fund code that is not present in the fund code table in ALMA, it will not be updated and an error message will be viewed in EBSCONET. The good thing is if you're also sending renewal notes or cancellation restrictions or vendor reference number, those other fields will be delivered, but the fund code would not be delivered. So in the testing we've done so far with customers, if there's error messages, it doesn't necessarily mean all of the updates were not delivered. It just means that, it could mean that one of the fields could not be delivered for whatever reason. And the error message that you'll see in EBSCONET is the error message that we received from ALMA. So you'll be able to detect and decipher why, what is this error message and why did it happen? This is an example of the history tab in the ALMA PO line and what it looks like when a field is updated by this API service that we're using. So you'll see the date that the cart was submitted. The operator is API ex libris. It shows the field that was updated, and it shows the old value and the new value. So I should also share that in the testing we've done so far, we have asked Ex Libris. We've had to create 2 tickets with Ex Libris. First, when we were doing testing, anytime we updated a cancellation restriction field, it wasn't getting logged in the history tab. And so when we opened a ticket with Ex Libris, they did advise that the cancellation restriction field was added later throughout different releases for ALMA. And it was an oversight on their part that they just didn't think to add those changes to the history tab. So hopefully that'll get fixed soon. I've put the ticket number here within the PowerPoint presentation in case you want to be able to view that ticket or keep tabs on the progress. There's also a second issue that was revealed, and a ticket is not only open, but it's already past level, tier level 3, and it's being reviewed now by the developers. We noticed, so in the, in the history tab for your PO line, there's 2 levels of historical information you can view. There's the PO line changes, and that worked beautifully when we tested. But there was this transaction changes section. And what we noticed is the dates for the transaction changes when we submitted the updates from EBSCONET, all the dates were changed to the date that the API updated other fields. In further testing we've done with customers, they've noticed that EBSCONET is not the only service that's doing strange things to those dates, that if they're using the update PO line API with other vendors or other services or other jobs they've created, they're noticing the same thing. So it's my hope that that specific ticket will be treated with a fairly high priority because it's not something that's just affecting our integration service, but it appears to be affecting other services as well. And it's doing it not only for transaction changes, but there's also a notes tab in your PO line, and it's doing strange things to the dates in your notes tab as well. This is an example of the ILS delivery status field that you can see in EBSCONET. So once you have submitted items within the cart and you actually have the integration service activated at the time you submit your cart, then there's a tab called Items Submitted to EBSCO, and it shows you the number of items you've submitted so far for renewal. And there's a new column now right on the screen in EBSCONET where you will see the value that was received for the delivery status to update your purchase order line. There's 3 possible scenarios. The record is either successfully sent, so that's great. We didn't receive any errors back from ALMA. You may see a record error message there. That means the record was received, but there was an error returned. And there's also a record not sent value, and that simply means there was no purchase order line match in ALMA, or the ILS number field in EBSCONET is empty. Or it could also mean that at the time you submitted your cart, the integration service was turned off. The nice thing is if you see record error, we actually provide a link. So you'll notice it's blue and underlined, indicating that it is a link. And when you click the link, the actual error message that was received from ALMA is right there in EBSCONET, and you can see exactly what the error message is and decipher what happened for that specific order record. Errors we've seen so far is the fund code didn't match anything that was in the table. There's a couple different errors we've seen, but it's nice to just know that if there's an error, you can say it. And not only can you say it, but you can also know exactly what the error is or was. You do have the ability to export the screen, the previous screen, and that is exported into an Excel spreadsheet. And we've added the actual ILS error message column. So you see the delivery status that you can view on the screen, but in the file export, you can not only see the delivery status, but you can also see the exact message that was returned from ALMA. Yeah, so here's an example. In some of the testing I was doing, I was transposing the purchase order line number in the ILS number field, or I was adding a strange character to it. And this is just an example. The error message was, hey, this PO line was not found. No idea what it is. We tried to find it, but couldn't send any updates. What's nice about that error message that some of the customers have shared with us is if you are receiving EDI invoices from EBSCO, you'll know in advance that the purchase order line is incorrect, which is also an indication that when you try to load your EDIFACT invoice, it's not going to find a match. So there is an opportunity based on some of these error messages to clean up your ILS number fields, or at least send the information and have your customer service rep update that field so that if you're an EDIFACT invoice customer, you'll have a higher success rate of your purchase order lines matching and invoice details being loaded to the right record. So earlier in the presentation, I mentioned that there is the ability to apply different profile settings to different subsets of orders within your renewal cart. So this is sort of an advanced feature, but we have had customers ask us to provide a service, a more customized service, in that there may be some records that I want to update. There may be a subset of records that I not only want to send cancellation restriction policy to, but I'd also like to send the unit price. But it could be that there's another subset that they wouldn't want to update that price, or they wouldn't want to change the cancellation restriction. So what you can do is edit and save your integration profile within EBSCONET. Move items to hold status in your cart, change your profile in EBSCONET, save it, then take a subset of the orders that are in the hold status and move them to the cart, check those items out, and the configuration profile that you saved in EBSCONET will only apply to that specific set of items that were in the cart and checked out at that time. Then if you have other settings you want to apply, you just go back to your integration profile, make your changes and save it, take the rest of the items from the hold, put it into the cart, check it out, and those settings will be applied, and those field changes will be sent to your ALMA purchase order record. So not something all customers may choose to use, but just another example of more customizations that we've provided to better meet the needs of all the different various workflows and policies and requirements that customers have when they're working in their renewals. So this is just a quick workflow summary of everything I've covered. So from beginning to end, first we would just turn on the service for a specific user within EBSCONET. Then you have the ability to enter your API key and your URL and immediately check that you can access the API. And then for each EBSCO 5-digit account, you can pick and choose what fields you want to be delivered to ALMA. And of course, you want to make sure that you save your settings. You always want to make sure that the integration profile is turned on before you submit your cart. Review your items in your EBSCONET cart, and then just check out your cart, which initiates the call to the update PO line API that's already existing in ALMA, in ALMA. And then at the time your cart is submitted, we would automatically deliver whatever fields that you've selected to the purchase order lines in ALMA. If there's a success, you'll see it. If there's an error, you'll see that as well. And the delivery status, as well as the error message received from ALMA, is viewable for each order record in EBSCONET. So we are already testing this. So we've been testing this with our development partners who are ALMA customers. And we're also now in the phase of testing with customers beyond just our development partners. It is preferable that you have a sandbox, but it is not required. And we have a sandbox account for EBSCONET as well, which is also preferred, but also not required. We have done some live testing with customers who don't have a sandbox. And the way we do that is we just, confirm that your renewals are in EBSCONET, which I believe most are because of the time of the year it is now. But what we've been doing is moving the items in the cart to the hold status and just putting 1 or 2 items in the renewal cart, configuring the integration settings, and just applying those changes to 1 or 2 items in the cart to view in ALMA, make sure everything looks good. But it's a great way to get your feet wet and actually touch and feel and view the service, check out the integration profile options, look at the way that it changes your purchase order line in ALMA, and just get a feel for the value that we can offer with this integration service. There is a customer-facing testing guide that is available to review in advance to kind of give you an idea of what's involved. We either use Teams or Zoom, and we'd like to record the session. And if you are interested in doing testing with us in either a sandbox environment or live, you should contact Shannon Pritting first, and he'll work with us or you to get us all set up. If you're going to use your sandbox account, it would require us to use the EBSCONET sandbox, which means I do have to do that testing with you because our sandbox sits behind our firewall. So it's not something that you have access to, but it's really exciting to be able to work together. I share my screen, you share your screen, do things back and forth and actually see it in action. And just a couple items to keep in mind if you would be interested in testing. Don't forget those 2 tickets that are existing now. So if we do any testing, you'll actually see those 2 issues in real time. Important to remember that if you have EBSCO order records that contain the same purchase order line in the ILS number field, then just by default, we would deliver multiple updates to the same ALMA PO line, which is in most cases not something that you want to happen. So some of the exercises that I've been doing with customers prior to testing is just exporting the contents of the renewal cart, doing a sort by ILS number field and see if there's a significant number of replicated purchase order lines and multiple EBSCO order numbers, something that's good to review in advance of testing. So it's a best practice, obviously, to remove any duplicate PO lines, specifically for child titles in membership packages. But if you do have a technical PO line for child titles that are zero price, possibly zero fund, and you do have a corresponding ALMA order number, you can actually enter that in the ILS number field in the renewal cart to deliver the updates to the technical PO line in ALMA. I think that's the end of what I have. So do we want to open for questions now about this, or do you want to wait to the end, Frank? It's up to you.
We can open for questions now because this is important. It's important to know that while we see the finish line, this is still something that that Anne is working on. It's a lot of effort she's put into it for quite a time right now, working with her counterparts over at Ex Libris. I think it was maybe 2 years ago, Anne, you presented at Aluna.
Yes.
Started with some getting some pen to paper, and this is where we are. So while our goal is to have this ready for everyone for this renewal season, it isn't yet guaranteed that it will work for everyone this renewal season. So I did want to put that caveat out there, but the way we do that is through the testing, through having some beta partners to go in and help us break it and see if we could fix it. Yeah, so if you have, there aren't a lot of folks here, so if anybody wants to unmute and ask questions, you can, or if you want to put them in the chat. Joe asked, by sandbox, do you mean premium sandbox? So there are, I think, 6 premium sandboxes, I think Shannon mentioned. So that was the goal. Am I right, Anne, to have that premium sandboxes?
Yep, that is correct.
That is correct. So without those, as Anne mentioned, there is a possibility of testing. It would just be done, outside of those. We could also, share the results of those. And, like I said, we're working with Shannon, Maggie, and Susan at SLS to make sure that the information that we get from any one of these tests is able to be expanded out, because obviously the SUNY system is such a varied group of campuses. So
one thing I want to add about that, Frank, is what's nice about, so if you don't have a premium sandbox and you still would be interested in testing, if you have a suffix, maybe like an 02 or a 04 or an 06 that only has just a few orders on it, that's a nice test group if in a live environment. The other option is to just select one field to be delivered to the purchase order line and test that way. Then you could see just the one update that would be applied from EBSCONET to ALMA, and then you could see the history change, as well as just get a feel for seeing the profile in your EBSCONET account, playing around with the integration profile, checking access to your to the API with your API key, and just doing, one record. The testing can literally be just that small if we're going to do it in a live environment.
And just to be clear, this is very different than the service that some of you might use with Gobi, which is also an API-based service, and that creates the record and the POL number in ALMA. So in theory, you could do this with a new title, but you would have to create that record and bring that POL back into EBSCONET and then run it. But that's not really the ideal thing. This is supposed to be a renewal integration tool. So I just wanted to clarify that this is very different than that tool.
And to add to that, we have plans to use that same create PO line API in the future, so that when new orders are added to your EBSCONET renewal cart, we would actually be calling two APIs, either the PO update API or create new PO line API. But that's a little farther down in the future.
And as with any work in progress, our plans can change based on your feedback. So as we move along, any suggestions you have, I don't want this, I do want this, I think this would help, doesn't mean we could definitely do it, but it is something that we need to hear because we don't know what we don't know. Our goal is to try and create tools that will help you work more efficiently. And that's how we get to that point.
Yeah, because to add to that as well, I know that there are more fields of data that we could be delivering to ALMA purchase order lines. But unfortunately, you can't have the moon and the sky and the stars all at one time. So we need to create phases of development. So we've had to break it down in pieces. So there are already things in the pipeline that we want to add and get prioritized and get developers to get their hands on. So the way I look at it is, this is like dipping our toe in the water. It's just, a smaller piece of a larger integration service that could really provide a substantial benefit to our customers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's work to be done on both sides. While Anne mentioned she works closely with her counterparts at Ex Libris in trying to make sure that what we need is fixed. We also have some work to do on our end in EBSCONET and the back end processes. So both sides are working to make this done as quickly as possible, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So if you want to, like I said, if you want to ask any questions or put them in the chat, you can go ahead. We'll maybe go ahead with the slides, and just I have a couple quick items to mention. They're sort of almost house cleaning, but the EBSCONET ALMA EDI invoicing. Nearly all of the SUNY schools, so the campuses use EDI invoicing, but not all. So I just wanted to remind them that this is available. We match on the ALMA POL line, and that must be present. So that's something that either you could enter in, or if you have a lot of them that aren't in EBSCONET, you could just provide us those, work with your customer service representative, or a lot of Tracy Burns or Janet Pinjator, your account service managers who are experts in this, and they work closely with Anne on all of these. And then we would deliver your EDI invoices via FTP and or secure FTP. And of course, those remain out on EBSCONET for 90 days in case there was a problem in the loading or there's some reason that you need to reload. They remain out there for 90 days. So that is something that we do want to mention. If there's a specific procurement problem you have, something with the way you process invoices that you believe that EDI invoicing might not be for you, you can just let us know that, and we'll let you know if we have something maybe from another school around the country that we do something with that you can make this work. So it doesn't mean, once again, that we're definitely going to be able to do it, but let us know if there's a reason why you're not using EDI, and we'll see if we can make it work. You go to the next slide, Anne. So this isn't as common as EDI invoicing, but ALMA does. ALMA and EBSCONET can work together for claiming. Basically, you would set up the EDI claiming in the background. We would also match them on a POL number, and you would need to set the predictive claiming, the predictive dates of receipt. I'm sorry. That information for a lot of titles is in EBSCONET. We do a lot of receiving of print titles, and we have a lot of receipt data as far as when you can expect to have that, the claiming information and the predictive data in there. So that's something that we could also work with you on. If you need more information, send me an email, or once again, Janet and Tracy are experts in this also. So it's another nice tool. Like I said, it's not as common. And if what you're doing works, you don't have to do it, but this is available. This is just something I wanted to note. When Ann mentioned the renewal notes, there are a few different versions or terminologies. There's a renewal note in the renewal for each title that Ann pointed out. And that's down there, and that's a note, as Ann mentioned, what the purpose of that is. There's also order comments. An order comment is specific for that order. It goes to the coder at EBSCO and potentially the publisher, depending on what it is you're putting in there. So that's not the same thing. And then there's also that new notes field that many of you may know about. That notes field that is on both the order and in the renewals is a note that's internal to your school. So that's almost like a sticky note that you might have on your monitor where you could put, retain this, that's down below the bottom one. That's basically like you could put retain this title for the department chair or look to cancel for next renewal cycle, whatever that is. So that's an internal note, but that's nothing that would be delivered via the service that Ann was talking about. That note that you would have there that's within the order and also in the renewal is a separate thing, and that's internal for your school. But this is a pretty nice thing to be used, especially when you want to mid-year make a note to yourself or maybe to whoever's going to be working the renewal, don't cancel this or change this to online, something like that. So that's another nice field. A few other items that I want to mention. There are other efficiencies that we've been working on. We rolled them out over the past year or so. The alerts tab, there's a little red asterisk that lights up on the top of your EBSCONET screen, so you don't have to go hunting around. And it'll let you know if there's an invoice available, some other finance note, an update to a claim that you might have submitted or a service issue. It'll let you know if there are any title changes available. And if you click on that, the title changes that we notify you of at any point during the year are issues per year change, publisher changes, which of course are important, format changes, frequency changes, and status changes if something becomes no longer able to be ordered or suspended. So those are things that you don't no longer have to hunt around or get 1,000 emails for. You can just get notified in one spot and we alert you to that. There's also a customer service portal some of you may be using. That's an EBSCONET where you can communicate with your customer service rep or your accounts receivable rep. It could be for every single item you communicate with them for, or just maybe major items like price these 50 titles or change these IPs. And that way, everyone in your institution who uses EBSCONET has access to that. They'll be able to keep track of that. And when there's a portal update, if your customer service rep writes a note back to you or your accounts receivable representative writes a note, you get notified in the alert. So you'll see the red indicator up top. So once again, you don't have to go hunting around and see if you received a response or not. We also added an order history tab, which is really nice. It's both in your orders and on the renewal. And that's just a list of every year that you've purchased this title. It's particularly good around this time of year, unfortunately, with all the cancellations we've been doing. If you're canceling an online title and you have access to the purchased content, it will let you know back to 1995 if you've been working with EBSCO, what format you've been purchasing this in, when you switched to online, and how long you've had that online title. So it goes back to 95. It's also helpful if a publisher changes hands, a title changes hands, and the new publisher is contesting what you believe you should have access to. This shows you back to 1995 when you switch to an online format for it. And so that's a nice new tool, and it's available in the renewal cart, so you don't have to hunt around and hop from screen to screen to try and find this information. And then finally, we've added some reports that might be helpful around this time of year. The price history is probably the most relevant. It gives you 5 years of the pricing that you've paid for these titles, and it'll let you know if that pricing's changed because of a format change. And that helps you with budgeting around this time of year. As we've just left last year's renewal cycle and we're ready to this year's, this is the budgets are obviously very important. Hopefully, I think it looks like everybody's praying for flat, which we usually like a little bit of an increase, but we know that you'll be probably moving money around, canceling some titles, unfortunately, and our goal is to put as much as possible in EBSCONET in one screen to stop you from having to go to 1,000 different places. And that's also the goal of the API service that Ann discussed, maybe to stop you from spending a few minutes for each item that you update, and then that hopefully will add up to a lot of time savings for you, since you're probably all wearing 3 or 4 different hats now. So, does anybody have any questions now? If you don't have them now, you can put them in the chat or just speak out, or you could just send us an email and we'll make sure we follow up with you. Okay, it looks like we're okay. I don't know if Claire, if you're still there, if you had any wrap up.
No, I don't.
Well, we appreciate your help then, Claire. And we appreciate everybody attending. We hope you have a great conference. I'm looking forward to the rest of it, and I am looking forward to actually being at SUNYLA in person next year.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.